Women in Focus, a podcast by British Naturism. Welcome to Women in Focus, a podcast brought to you by British Naturism. I'm Helen Berryman, your host, and today I bring you episode 14. I just want to wish everyone a happy new year for 2025. I hope everyone had great Christmases for those that celebrate. Ours was a little quiet. We had a couple of the kids round, played silly party games, and had generally a nice time. British Naturism had plenty of events to go to throughout the winter season. We went to one of those events, a naked Christmas dinner event, which was really nice and populated by about 40 people. So it's a chance for us all to get together, celebrate Christmas in our favourite attire. 2025 promises a busy and productive year for British Naturism. There's plenty of events lined up for the coming year, online and of course live. For details of those events, you can go on to bn.org.uk. We've got all the festivals as usual, dining events, sporting events. British Naturism will have something for you. A quick reminder as well for the upcoming ladies-only clothing optional holidays in Fuerteventura. We've got two events running this year. First one being 7th to the 14th of April and the second one 1st to the 8th of May. There is still availability on both dates. You don't have to be a member of British Naturism to get involved. We do, however, ask that you are a woman. If you would like to book or to find out more details, email beverlyhillsvilla@yahoo.com. The website will of course be on the show notes. Today's episode 14, is a little bit different. We'll be joined by Sheila Maycock, who is an active member of British Naturism and the Christian Naturist Fellowship. Sheila and I discuss naturism and Christianity and how they can go alongside each other. It makes for an interesting conversation actually, and highlights some things I hadn't really thought of before. So I hope you'll find this discussion as interesting as I did. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Sheila Maycock. Hi, Sheila.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me. Now, you took part in the written series of Women in Focus quite some time ago now, wasn't it?
Seems ages.
I know.
Time just goes on, doesn't it?
It does. And you were very comprehensive with your answers, so I'm sure we're going to have quite a discussion today.
I like to write, so I'll see what I can do with the chat and things.
With the verbals. So let's start with telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into naturism and how long ago that was.
Yeah, I'm in my early 60s, let's put it that way.
That's the new 40s.
Absolutely. And actually I'm still 23 in my head. So that's sort of where I'm at. But I've been married to Stephen for over 40 years, so I can't be 23. I've got 3 daughters who are in their 30s and now 2 young grandchildren.
Oh.
We're in Devon, loving coast and countryside, and we've got 2 naturist beaches very near to us. In fact, 3. We've discovered a new one as well. So down at Weston, down at Budley, and down at Seaton. So we enjoy going down to the beaches, and we often get our kayak and our paddleboard out as well and paddle along to one of the beaches when we're going. Quite sporty. We enjoy tennis and swimming and walking and gardening.
We can't be friends.
Oh well, there we go. Well, I do like baking and cooking, which is why I have to do all the sport to try and work out all the calories and things. And then stone carving, I do a bit of that. It's quite a mindful hobby. You have to be a bit sort of quiet and careful about that one. I tend to be a bit gung-ho otherwise, so that's quite interesting. Always I've enjoyed writing, and now I've been writing a little bit of poetry and just dipping my toe into poetry open mics and things, which is an interesting experience as well.
Oh, what, doing it in public?
Yeah, there's just a little group that meets in our local town and things, and share our writings, which is nice. So I'm semi-retired, so I can do all these exciting things. I used to run a branch of Relate, the counselling charity, but I still do a bit of delivering counselling, which is fun. I work with families. And then when we're not sort of doing that, we're travelling to Australia to visit one of our daughters, or travelling in our motorhome. We like to go to Europe, or we like to go to naturist events, and the motorhome's a great base for that. That works really, really well. And we're members of the Christian Naturist Fellowship. And naturism sits really well alongside our Christian faith. It's got a focus on love, acceptance, non-judgment of our fellow humans. And naturism's got that in spades, absolute spades.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long has naturism been part of your life?
Probably just before lockdown. He was removed from a job quite ferociously, which wasn't an easy time for him. And he started to take himself down to Studland, which was our local beach when we were living in Dorset at the time. And it took him quite a while to tell me, that he'd been trying naturism. But as soon as he did, I knew that he wouldn't get up to anything dodgy. He's that sort of bloke. His integrity is absolutely spot on. So then we decided to go away for one of our trips in our motorhome, and he suggested a naturist site in France, and I never looked back, really.
So was the trip to France your first sort of naturist experience, or had you gone to the Studland or one of the beaches?
No, I think the trip to France was the first naturist experience, yeah. And then we've discovered beaches and things since in this country, which has been cool. And then lockdown really sort of accelerated our involvement in naturism.
Yeah.
Because we could be comfortable at home. It was lovely weather when that first lockdown came along. And then British Naturism put on so many online events that we were just hooked in, really, with yoga and pub quizzes and all sorts of different opportunities to dance or whatever.
Yeah. Did you attend the online Christmas party that they did?
Absolutely fabulous. Yeah.
It's brilliant, wasn't it?
Just so much good stuff going on. Yeah. So
we had our living room all rigged out with speakers, a glitter ball.
Yeah. I think I probably saw you. Yeah. We went, Amazon benefited from us buying sort of disco lights and things.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it so much, but it was really good. Everyone really appreciated it, didn't they?
Yeah, such fun, and a lot of the disco nights that Mark put on as well were just immense fun.
Yeah. So it sounds like you joined British Naturism pretty quickly after discovering naturism.
Yes, I mean, Stephen, again, being an accountant, he's fairly risk averse. So he thought if we were part of an organisation, that would be safer somehow, and there wouldn't be any sort of concerns. So it was mainly a safety concern. And then as we've got more involved in British Naturism, we've just discovered a wonderful bunch of people that are just so friendly and supportive, and it's been a great way of life, really.
Yeah, it's totally true. Like I think you said in one of your questions, within naturism, because everyone's there for the right reasons and it's all about body freedom, non-judgmental, etc., you don't see the bits and pieces that everyone's so concerned about.
No, absolutely. I mean, everybody's very programmed, I think, particularly women, I think, very programmed to view their own bodies with a bit of disdain or a bit of dislike or a bit of fear. And that's just thrown aside in naturism. We've all got different shapes, sizes, wobbles, odd bits. And it's no big deal. It's about who you are rather than what you look like.
We've still got them, whether we're dressed or not.
Absolutely, and covering them up so often seems to make you more aware of them because does my bum look big in this? It's that sort of thing. Whereas if your bum hasn't got anything on it, who cares really?
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, very much so. So there's quite a few challenges for women, I think, in naturism. It tends to be a male-dominated activity, lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. And that's, I guess, cultural as well, that it's safer for men to be nude, to not have clothes on. And again, women have been programmed to take the blame for that. And there's quite a lot of feminist views around that say, hang on a minute, why should it be the woman's fault? Why shouldn't the man take responsibility? And in naturism, women and men both take responsibility for their own actions, their own reactions, and there isn't that blame culture that women are tempting or women are leading people on. I mean, I'm quite a naturally friendly, chatty, smiley person, and in naturism, there's no way that anybody's going to get the wrong idea from that. Whereas in the world, certainly I've had people thinking I'm coming on to them because I'm just being friendly.
Yeah.
And that's just really...
So we spoke earlier about the kindness of naturism and how it is in line with your Christian beliefs. Can you tell us a bit more about that and the Christian Naturist Fellowship?
Yes, we. I can't remember when we first came across the Christian Naturist Fellowship. I think there was it was advertised through BN, and there was something locally in Dorset. So I went to my first Christian Naturist worship service in the nude in Dorset. So that was quite another sort of real watershed moment. I've been to lots and lots of Christian services. I've been a Christian since I was a teenager, but never one without my clothes on. So that was quite a significant step for me. But the Christianity and naturism sit really well alongside each other for us.
Mm.
And Christian naturists are sort of ask questions. We've got vision, that freedom of expression. We've got respect for others, non-judgmental approach. That's part of the naturism, but it's also part of the Christianity. So for me, it just flows really well.
Mm.
Also Christian naturism is a little bit, well, quite a lot countercultural. I mean, it's countercultural to the church, but the church should be countercultural anyway. The church should be challenging where things are perhaps going wrong and not in accordance with God's plan and not in accordance with God's kingdom.
Mm.
So to be part of that as a naturist, I think gives you that extra edge. I mean, we're sort of challenging societal norms by, expressly being nude. And we can challenge then that assumption that's within Christianity and within the world of that nudity and shame are somehow associated with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And taking away that shame then reinforces your freedom and reinforces my connection with God.
Mm.
A lot of the historical Christianity might have been, you've sinned, you've done wrong, a lot of shame and blame based theology, if you like. But as naturists, I think enables us to experience a deeper connection with God.
Mm.
I think as naturists, we experience a deeper connection with people because the barriers are down. There's no sort of physical barriers in terms of clothing. And I think that goes along the same lines with Christianity, that you can have that deeper connection with God. I mean, God created every part of us, if we believe that he is our creator God.
Mm.
And we've just been conditioned to be ashamed of our bodies. And by being physically naked, we can remove emotional and spiritual layers, which again is a great parallel with the freedom that we have as naturists as well.
Mm.
Going back to Christian Naturist Fellowship, that's run by a wonderful couple called Siobhan and Peter, who you know really well, Helen. And they are just the most loving and caring and embracing people who love people around them, and they have a great love for God. And they run the Christian Naturist conference once a year. Where we all get together and worship together. We, do all the usual stuff that you do in church. You sing, you pray, you listen to a talk, but without any clothes on, if it's warm enough, because sometimes it's not. And we do be sensible in that. I've got a jumper on today.
Yeah, same. I've got my winter uniform on today.
It's snowy outside.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. We were iced up last night. It was pretty chilly. But yeah, the Christian Naturist Fellowship, it's that sort of true vulnerability that you're experiencing with other people, yet it's safe. It's a safe vulnerability.
Right.
And that true vulnerability enables you to then be vulnerable with God as well, because we're not erecting all of those barriers of either clothing or whatever else gets in the way.
Mm.
And that enables genuine community as well. So it's with God, but it's with other people. I've been to naturist baptisms, for example.
I saw, actually, there's a film going around, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. James Dunlop's YouTube video is great. So if anybody wants to have a look at that, we've had 1.5 million views now.
Oh, amazing.
It's really, out there. It did get taken down by YouTube for a short while.
Oh.
And then they put it back up.
But there was nothing to see.
Well, absolutely.
He was very careful with his editing and pixelating and whatnot.
Absolutely. So anyway, it's back on.
Yeah.
And there's two videos on YouTube by James Dunlop and filmed at the Christian Naturist Fellowship conference, worth having a look at. A Christian baptism, but a Christian naturist baptism.
Yes. We can put the details of it on the show notes. I had the pleasure of going to one of the CNF conferences, actually, a couple of years ago, and went to their worship and enjoyed the barbecue and whatnot. And do you know what I really liked about it? I mean, I was brought up Catholic and I used to find church incredibly boring. and, forced to go and forced to be quiet and forced to sit there for an hour. Too many rules, all that sort of stuff. What I found really good about the CNF was what do you call it? A sermon? Is it a sermon?
Sermon, talk, whatever.
Yeah. It's really relatable. They're very engaging, and they sort of liken it to, yes, they're talking about the Bible, but they liken it to day-to-day stuff. And I found that not boring at all, and actually quite enjoyed it, and even got up and sang.
Well, good to hear. Again, either with our bodies or with Christianity or whatever, we've all got previous experience, and we base then our expectations on that. So for you, sadly, Catholic faith made it very boring, or not particularly accessible.
I think I was too young to appreciate anything back then, really, anyway.
Absolutely. And Catholics aren't bad people at all, but it's the way it's delivered, isn't it? Theology, the Bible, whatever, has got to actually mean something in our day-to-day life, be useful. And that's the whole point of the Christian Naturist Fellowship, I suppose. It's sort of sitting down, discussing, learning together, sharing together, and meeting with God together, so that we've got that mutual support, if you like, because faith isn't an easy thing. There are questions, and it's not clear. It's faith. It's not, absolute certainty.
No.
And we're all working it out. Because for me, we see the love in it, and that love comes from God, and then that love flows through people. And that's the whole sort of cycle for me. I think it comes down to love, respect, non-judgment.
Which fits in nicely with the naturism as well.
Absolutely, it does, doesn't it? I mean, I don't strip off at my local church.
I was going to ask you that. But do you talk about it?
I'm not sure they cope. Some people are aware. I've dipped my toe in talking about skinny dipping. And then recently I took on the safeguarding officer role.
Right.
And in the due diligence that was done in terms of sort of who I was, because that's what we need to do for our safeguarding, to make sure people are who they say they are. One of the guys discovered my naturism, probably on Facebook or something, I don't know. And he was much more uncomfortable than I was talking about it. But I did say, look, if it's a problem with this safeguarding role, tell me. And there was no complaint about there being any danger or any difficulty. I mean, in naturism, safeguarding is, again, second to none. It's the safest place to be.
Yeah.
Especially at events, there are people who do take great care to make sure that there isn't anything dodgy going on. And if people aren't abiding by the rules, and there are some unspoken rules, but there are a lot of notified rules as well.
Yeah.
And if people aren't abiding by those, then there are volunteers who will intervene and make this very clear.
And we often don't see it, but we know they're on it. Any sort of rule breaking or
absolutely
annoyance, irritants, anything like that is all dealt with in such a professional way that it doesn't affect the other guests.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're at an event, you've got every sort of confidence that you're safe. And that's really important as a woman. It's really important as a man as well, but particularly, I think, for a woman, because we're not used to being in safe environments.
Right.
So,
So that's often a misconception, isn't it? That you said that, and I say as well, that naturism is a really safe space, especially for women. Yet the wider society will probably think, well, how can it be? Because you're vulnerable, you've got your kit off, surely you're an exhibitionist or whatever they may think.
Yeah.
So, by having conversations like this is letting other people know that, no, it's nothing to do with your attributes. It's much, much deeper than that. Yeah. The clothing off is kind of incidental to how you are and how you're engaging with other people and how you treat other people. And I think the biggest word that we can sort of say to anyone, and this is with or without your clothes on, is respect.
I mean, the great thing about naturism is that it desexualizes nudity.
It's the least sexy environment ever.
Absolutely. And, culture, our society sort of just takes it for granted that if you're showing a bit of flesh, it's available. And, you're offering it for sex. There's that victim blaming culture that goes on in our world. And whether that's, in the media or whether it's, in the courts, I've seen that as well, that the victims are blamed. So again, in naturism, that non-sexual environment is just so refreshing. Because, if you have got your kit off, it's not for anybody else's pleasure. It's just is there. And as is anybody else's body while you're in naturism as well.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the person rather than judging the body. You're looking at the person rather than thinking that they're there for your gratification. I mean, I think there's a lot of work to do in the world to educate people, both women and men, about sort of respect, about consent, about all of those things. And particularly important to educate young boys and young men.
Yes.
About consent as well and what that actually means.
Definitely.
That, is not the case in naturism. That naturism, there is that respect, there is that understanding that you are you, I'm me. I take responsibility for my reactions. You take responsibility for who you are.
Yeah.
Not about using and abusing other people for your own needs.
And if you are there for that reason, if you're going to go to a British Naturism festival, for example, and you're expecting gratification of some sexual kind, you're going to be very, very disappointed.
I mean, there are people on the beaches, aren't there? But in a beach sort of environment, you haven't got the safety net, if you like, of British Naturism. So you haven't got that organisational safety around you.
But what you do have is other naturists who are pretty on tap to call out any sort of wrongdoings, aren't they?
Absolutely. So yeah, if people are going to be acting in a way that's against the spirit of naturism, then it will get picked up pretty quickly, and people will be made unwelcome and generally take themselves off because they're not getting what they thought they were going to get.
What about naturist walks? Do you go on organised public walks?
Yeah, I've done a few of those. NatRam's a great organisation.
Oh, yes.
We did a lot of walks with them when we were living further east, but now we're a bit far west. But yeah, I've been the only woman walking with 40 blokes, and it's the safest I've ever felt. And you have some wonderful conversations as you're wandering along because you're engaging at that sort of deeper level again. You've got that instant understanding between you of your philosophy and your approach to life. And the barriers are down, and talk about all sorts of thoughtful things, really, and not thoughtful things, if that's what you want to chat about. But yeah, it's just been brilliant. And there's a couple of walks now that have started over this way, a bit further west as well, which is great. And generally, members of the public, if you're in a group, don't bat an eyelid. And some of them are just sort of, oh, good on you. Some of them just scuttle past because that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah.
And some are just sort of, oh, I wish I had the courage to do that.
Well, that's true. That's a lot of women don't like to go on these walks. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's to do with being in public? Do you think it's because there's so many men on them?
I don't know. I mean, the men that I've walked with worry, and worry that women don't want to join them because they're all blokes, and I'm usually really glad when I rock up. We got a woman joining us, yay! So you get a bit spoiled, and they're very kind, which people are anyway in naturism. But I don't know why women won't do it. There's lots of different reasons, aren't there? But the walks we've done have just been great, and you just don't get sweaty bits. That's the greatest thing.
When I've been on, I didn't do the NatRam ones. I went on the shorter ones. Are they Star Trekkers?
Yeah, Stark Trekkers, aren't they?
Yeah, so they're a little bit shorter, which suits me much better.
Yeah.
But we also take a little packed lunch with us, but I get Simon to carry that. So I'm completely hands-free, just walking along in the elements. It is nice, but there's only been, I think, one occasion that there's been another woman.
Really?
And that was Fiona, who I made come with me anyway.
You made him come. I've walked with Fiona as well. She's confident and out there, and it is a confidence thing. It is, what's it going to be like? There's all sorts of concerns, and again, that cultural expectation of if you're naked, if you're showing too much boob, then you're putting yourself at risk, and it's your fault if you're at risk. That's the cultural expectation, isn't it?
And I think for me, because last year after Nude Fest, a few of us did the Glastonbury tour walk.
Oh, yeah, that was so cool. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a long way.
And uphill.
Yeah. The walk back was fine. No, but what I didn't like about it is some of the people just look at you like you're a bit simple.
Yeah, and people don't know how to be with all sorts of different things. I used to work with a disability charity, and the people that I was working with were often wheelchair users or, had visible disabilities. And they had encountered so much discrimination and so many negative comments and things. But then they assumed that that's what was going to be happening.
Mm.
So we challenged that. We went off to a supermarket with these people in their wheelchairs and just had conversations with people. And actually, a lot of the difficulty people had was their own difficulty, that they didn't know how to be. They were embarrassed. They were uncomfortable. So, and I think there's a parallel probably with naturism as well. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to be in that situation.
Yeah.
We are throwing convention out of the window. And a lot of people just rely on convention to get them through day-to-day stuff without having to think about stuff.
That's true of, like you say, any situation that you're unfamiliar with. And I can just liken this to my mum passed away a couple of months ago, and people don't know what to say to me. And, you know, a couple of friends have just sort of vanished, like, you know, she's died, like I'm still here. They just don't know what to say or how I'm going to be. And
people cross the road rather than talk to you.
Yeah. It's likened to, like you say, many different situations where people are just uncomfortable.
So I think, it's easy to assume that people, are disapproving if we're spotted naked or whatever, or on a naked walk. But actually, I don't think that's often the case. I think it's often that they don't know how to react.
Yeah. If we go back a little bit, when you were a younger lady, were you confident within your body?
No, I don't think so. I mean, who is? Because again, we're brought up as women, as girls. My mum was matching handbags, matching shoes, the full makeup, always had a sort of shampoo and set and a perm, and she was immaculate. But that was a mask. That was about, a lack of confidence, and she couldn't go out without the lippy, and she couldn't go out without looking the part. So I was quite a disappointment to her, really, because I never really got into all that sort of stuff. But she would walk down the street and say, "Oh, look at her. Oh, look at this. Look at that." And pointing out what was wrong with people. And, I was brought up like that. So, I had a great understanding of what was wrong with me and what was wrong with my body. So, yeah, it makes it hard to be confident in your body. But as I grew, as I sort of became more self-aware, and the counselling training really helped with that as well, it was, well, actually, this is who I am. And, that judgment, that internal judgment that we go through isn't relevant, and it's not the truth.
Yeah.
So I really tried very hard, and I'm still learning because it's very cemented, that upbringing, to be unjudgmental about people, to not, think negatively, and to accept people for who they are. So that's where my sort of journey has been, really, in terms of my own self-awareness, my own self-acceptance, and acceptance of other people.
Yeah.
My mum didn't do it on purpose, but hey, just the way she came.
It's just the way we've been brought up, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And maybe because I can remember doing the same sort of thing when I was younger, and just, oh, look at her, or taking the mick out of somebody if they were a bit different, and it's, I think personally, through naturism, I'm learning to undo all of that negativity, and appreciate the good in people rather than expect the negativity all the time that I'm used to.
Yeah, well, that's right. And if you're not projecting the negativity, then you're less likely to expect it coming back at you as well. So the world goes a lot better, doesn't it? And again, that sort of links so much better into the Christianity bit as well.
Yeah. With the CNF, is that open to any?
Yeah,
or is it?
Absolutely. I mean, we're all very different Christians in Christian Naturist Fellowship. We're not sort of one size fits all, either physically or theologically. There's loads of different ways of expressing Christianity, or expressing a faith, or seeking, your religious experience or whatever. And, I think it's healthy to have a lot of different people meeting together who have different views and different experiences. God isn't one size fits all. God is got to be so much bigger than that. Otherwise, he wouldn't be God. And people try and sort of contain him and make him in their own image, whereas we're in God's image. And each of the people in the CNF, I believe, just reflect a different facet of God, a different part. I know my little bit, and I'm learning, the bit that I know about my faith. But, Peter will have something different, or Paul will have something different, and we can all share that and gain a greater appreciation of our faith and our God in that way. So I find it really, really healthy that people come from different denominations, different faith experiences. It's great.
Yeah, and make for some very interesting conversations, I imagine, and a bit more awareness of how other people reason with God.
Well, that's right. And, the great thing is, it's about respecting difference and knowing we're all different rather than somebody being right and somebody being wrong. So it's a much more sort of embracing and multifaceted, multicoloured approach rather than that black and white, right and wrong thinking, which really doesn't serve many people well, I don't think.
Is it open for anybody in the world, or is it UK based, or how does it work?
Well, yeah, it is a very international organisation. When we have our CNF conference, we have people travelling from Australia to come and join us. And we've got a couple come from Germany to come to Kent. And actually, we're just supporting our Australian friends to start the Australian Naturist Fellowship as well. So, yeah, he's setting up all the terms and conditions and getting people together in Australia as well. So it's widening the net.
I ask most people that come on the podcast about the language of naturism. So naturist versus nudist. Any difference in your opinion?
No, I don't think so. I mean, naturism is the word I've got used to using. Nudist might sort of tend to be a bit more sort of arty, life drawing-y. I don't know. If you do nude art, then there's a sort of certain image around that, isn't there? But no, naturism is the word I tend to use, and I call myself a naturist rather than a nudist. It doesn't really matter, but linguistics is quite interesting sometimes.
It is, actually.
What it means to people.
And how you say something as well.
Absolutely.
Carries different meaning.
And it's, again, that clarity for people, isn't it? And separating nudity from sex in naturism. I think that's how the sort of words sit alongside each other for me.
It's interesting. My friend who died a couple of years ago, I met with her mum yesterday to have a coffee. And it transpires that my friend's mum's brother lives at Spilplatz.
Okay.
so which is a naturist village near London. So she's known that, and she knows I'm naturist as well. And the point is, when I spoke to her about naturism, she went, that's such a nicer way of describing what he does than nudist. And I've called him a nudist all my life.
Yeah.
You know, she's 77 years old. And she just went away with a new understanding yesterday. And I said, yeah, speak to your brother about it. It's not weird. You're speaking to me about it. Why not speak to him?
Yeah. And that, you know, the word nudity will have had all sorts of connotations for her, and negative connotations, I'm guessing. So yeah, we do have to be careful with language. You know, I'm just amazed that we ever managed to communicate with another human being, really. There's so many nuances and so many pitfalls and so many difficulties that could happen between two people having a conversation.
And that's just in English.
Yeah.
So you talk about naturism in a very positive way, and people at your church may or may not be aware, and it's not a big deal to you. How about your family? Are they supportive and aware?
Yeah, we've got 3 daughters, and we've encouraged them to be themselves. They are very individual. They run their own lives and steer their own course, and we're very proud of them for that. And they just think this is just another one of those unusual things that their parents get up to. And they're very kind, supportive. I think they'd all join in if it wasn't for partners or husbands who are perhaps less comfortable with seeing your mother-in-law nude. Does the reading, really. In fact, great quote from my son-in-law when, you know, he knows we're naturists. And then when we said we were going to the Christian Naturist Fellowship, he said, that's very niche, isn't it? So it's niche. I like that word.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the girls, certainly one of our daughters, the daughter in Australia has joined us, and naturist swimming and very relaxed about her body as well, which is great.
Yeah, same with one of ours, actually. 2 of ours will get more involved. One doesn't like sunshine, so that actually counts her out. She's a goth.
And whatever family, you know, whatever friends we've spoken to it about, they've always been very, you know, very interested, but not over interested. Nobody's decided to join us, but they've not been horrified or not been tempted not to be our friends anymore. So
I was just about to ask that. You haven't lost any friendships over your naturist lifestyle?
Have you?
A few people sort of go a bit quiet on Facebook.
Yeah, well, you are there on Facebook, aren't you?
But no one sort of confronted me about it. Or, in fact, lots of people will ask a lot of questions, like, you know, something silly usually, but it does open up a conversation. When we went to the World Naked Bike Ride, we were watching and listening to what other people were saying, and they were going, oh, these lot are weird or exhibitionists and all that. And I couldn't help myself. I just went up to one of these men with a British Naturism legal card, and I just went, read this, look at the website, go educate yourself.
Good on you.
Yeah. And it started off another conversation. He was genuinely interested after that, but he immediately thought, bunch of weirdos. Till a dressed person, me, was sort of, saying, well, no.
But weird's good, isn't it? I mean, normal's boring, for goodness sake.
Yeah, normal is boring. If we're all the same, it would be, incredibly boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So if there are women listening to this who just think, well, that's good for you, you can do it, you must be more confident, or, I haven't got the body for it, what would you say?
I don't know. I suppose I'd just sort of look at helping them or encouraging them to a greater self-acceptance first. Do you like yourself? Not do you like your body? Do you like yourself? How comfortable are you with who you are and what you stand for? And then, encourage them to have a little wander around at home in a safe space without their clothes on, and just get used to that feeling, because it's a great sense of freedom just wandering around the house, really, and hoping the postman doesn't look through the door or whatever. Just make sure it's private. And then if you ever do get the confidence to join an event, you won't look back. Because as soon as you've joined in with other people, the acceptance, the non-judgmental, the respect, the love, the care, you won't have experienced anything like it. If you've not sort of had that close community, really, to encourage you, to respect you, to give you that respect and value who you are, really, as that's what you get from naturism.
Yes, and it is true, exactly what you say. It is the sense of community, camaraderie, non-judgment that meant, for me, I went 180, like, I hate this, what are you doing, to let me at it, let me tell everybody how wonderful this is.
Absolutely.
The way I reason it is, if I was so wrong about it, then so many other people are wrong as well. So, yeah, that's why I'm so verbal, rightly or wrongly.
But I do think, with women, once you have experienced the joy of being naked together, it really does boost your confidence, because actually you look round and think, well, who cares? And that is a great confidence boost, because then it doesn't matter what you do or what you're wearing or what you're not wearing. This is about, who I am. And that self-belief is bolstered, I think, by joining in naturist events. Not being arrogant, not being, my way or the highway, but just accepting yourself for who you are and the loveliness that you are.
Yeah. And I think we overcomplicate things in our minds in regards to naturism from the outside, in as much as, well, I don't understand it, therefore it must be weird. And there's no amount of reading about it or writing about it or talking about it until you actually go to something yourself and experience it for yourself. You'll never know.
Yeah.
And that's true of anything.
I mean, it is unusual.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's wrong or bad.
Right.
It's good to do different stuff. And this is a really safe way of doing different stuff.
Yeah.
Because, we've said already, if you go to an event, people will be looked out for and looked after. And so it will be a space where you can relax and just be. And there's not that many spaces in this world where that happens. There's usually expectations, there's usually agendas, there's usually stuff to fit in. And I don't think that's the case with naturism. I think people are just allowed to be who they are, as long as they're fitting in with the rules of respect and mutual acceptance that underlines the whole thing.
Towards the end of the written series, I asked if you had any further thoughts. And you said, naturism seems to be a place where gay men have been able to find their tribe, but there is perhaps a gap for LGBTQI plus women. That's a really good point, actually. Firstly, you don't see many women, full stop, but you certainly don't find many gay women, do you? What do you think about that? Can you divulge on that a little bit?
Again, it's a sort of difficulty, isn't it, for people to feel that they might be accepted. And if naturism is seen as a male domain, we're working hard, or you're certainly working very hard, to make it a place where women are seen to be accepted. So, I think the next step is for gay women to feel it's a space for them as well.
People talk about events being heavily male dominated, but I don't feel that way at a festival.
Yeah, and I think the festivals, the events, are open to women, and it's a great place for women to be. But it really doesn't matter in naturism whether you're a man or a woman.
Mm.
Just people, and that is just a wonderful experience to have.
Yeah. Well, you and I go gender blind in a naturist environment. We don't see gender anymore. It's people.
Yeah.
But it's sort of providing that entry level for some women, which is why we're trying to offer women's days or women's holidays, because once you've experienced it.
And it's that opportunity to have these sort of conversations, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
We love to chat, we love to explore. And as soon as you get into a naturist environment, there is that opportunity to talk and explore and ponder and ask and, ask somebody else what they think.
Yeah.
It opens up all sorts of conversations. And again, it's a safe space to explore what you think and to say what you think, because it's an accepting environment, and it's just having a chat about stuff.
It's true. And when you've got your clothes off, you kind of are a little bit vulnerable, maybe at least initially, but you're also vulnerable with your feelings, not just your physicality.
Yeah.
And so therefore you are able to share things you perhaps wouldn't with your textile friends, because it may not be accepted in the same way.
And it's very true. You reach depth a lot more quickly, I think, because you haven't got those barriers in the way, and you are saying, yeah, I'm vulnerable, and I'm offering you my vulnerability, and I'm trusting you with my vulnerability, which then can be used as a springboard for trust in other areas as well.
Yeah, no, exactly that. Lovely stuff. All right, well, we'll leave it there then, Sheila. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, brilliant.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
So we've been talking to Sheila Maycock today, who is a big supporter of British Naturism and the Christian Naturist Fellowship. So we've been talking about the CNF, and I'm going to welcome now Siobhan to tell us a little bit more about the Christian Naturist Fellowship. Welcome back to Siobhan.
Hi, it's great to be back. Thank you for inviting me, Helen.
Thank you too, and hope you had a nice Christmas and all the festivities that go along with that.
Yeah, it was all really lovely, thank you. But I'm glad to be getting life back to normal now.
Yeah. So, as you're probably aware, we've been talking quite a lot about the Christian Naturist Fellowship.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us where did it all come from? When was it born? How did it begin?
Okay.
Because I believe you're one of the chairs of the committee. Is that right?
Yes, Peter, my husband, and I, we are the chairs of Christian Naturist Fellowship, and we're supported by a leadership team, and then, of course, the wider fellowship. It started 26 years ago this year.
Oh, okay.
And it was originally just a membership from within the UK. But since COVID, we've gone online and started doing sort of Zoom Bible studies every week and stuff. It's now become a global organization, and we now have members from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, Sheila is what I would call an active member. She's really involved. She's part of the worship group when we do services and stuff in person. She's part of the music group, and she also writes articles about CNF, and she's just an all-round good egg. As is her husband, Stephen. So, they're really active and faithful members of the CNF.
100%.
The point of CNF is to bridge the gap between naturism and Christianity. It's to support Christians who are naturists and to help naturists who might be interested in becoming Christian or taking on the Christian faith and don't know where their naturism would fit into it.
Right.
So that's basically what CNF is there for. That's its purpose.
Okay. So you talked about Christianity, but is it welcome to all faiths?
Well, yes, everybody's welcome, but there is a set of beliefs that we believe in. We do ask that our members are able to identify with those beliefs. But, everybody's welcome. Especially, on the Sunday afternoon Zoom, or the once a month we do a Your Say, where somebody comes and tells about their journey. So absolutely anybody's welcome to those two things. I don't know whether people from other faiths would want to be part of CNF, but there's certainly no barrier to them if they would like to.
And how does a CNF service differ to any other, aside from the lack of clothes?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
That is the main difference. The only thing is we are non-denominational. That means that we don't profess to be Pentecostal or Baptist or Methodist or Anglican or Catholic or any of the denominations. Every denomination is welcome, and we don't subscribe to any particular doctrine.
And your husband and yourself, you've been ordained.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly for those that may not know?
Well, basically, it means that you are set apart to do the job that you do and to be in the leadership of the work that you're working in. It's a bit like being commissioned. It's a ceremony that says you've gone to now being the Reverend Siobhan Azan or the Reverend Peter Azan, and you are now in charge of this work.
So are there many of you ordained within the CNF?
Not within the leadership team, there's only Peter and I. But within our membership, we have lots of people who are ordained ministers of other churches and from the Church of England in particular. But they might not necessarily have told their church.
About naturism?
About naturism, yeah.
Right.
So they might not necessarily want to make a big thing out of the fact that they are ordained ministers.
And why do you think people may not want to tell their churches? Is it the ignorance that clothing is shameful, or no, the other way around? I mean, yeah, that's how I think. Clothing is shameful.
Shame. Well, some clothing is shameful, let's be honest, you know. But it's the fear of judgment, and that people won't understand, and that people will think it's sinful.
Yeah, but I remember interviewing a couple of years ago Pastor Jim in the US.
Yeah.
And he was asked to speak to a family member who was a naturist. And Pastor Jim said, well, before I do, I better do some Bible study and get my facts right.
Yeah.
And he came back with all this information that there's nothing in the Bible that says nudity is sinful.
Correct.
So he went back, he showed his findings to the family member in question, and fast forward, he's now a very passionate advocate for naturism and Christian naturism as well. So
amazing.
Over the years, the interpretation of what nudity is has gone wowzers mad.
Exactly. Even the creation story, people just take bits out of it to mean something else. But if you read the whole thing, the only time Adam and Eve became ashamed was when they broke the promise that they made to God and ate off the tree. That's when they became ashamed. Not because they were naked.
Nothing to do with their state of dress.
No, because God used to walk with them, it says in Genesis, in the cool of, so it got to the cool of the evening, they used to go for a walk in the Garden of Eden, naked with God. So, you know.
Right. If people are interested in learning more about the Christian Naturist Fellowship, you don't have to be a Christian necessarily. I remember coming along to a couple of your speeches, sermons, what would you call it? Readings?
Talks, whatever, service. Yeah, you got it, whatever you want.
Chat. And it wasn't like anything I remember growing up. It was totally engaging.
Well, that's good to hear.
And I remember as a child having to go along to service and stuff, like, oh man, not again. But I just want to say that I think the work you're doing is very good and not boring. It's relatable. That's the word I'm looking for.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's nice of you to say that. I mean, our passion is to be faithful to God and not slaves to a particularly religious set of laws.
And if people want to know more, I'm going to put details to the website on the show notes, and they can come to you and ask you some questions. And if you want to write in, you can, and speak to Siobhan. That's absolutely fine as well. So yeah, once again, thank you very much, Siobhan. I'm going to get you back on next month to discuss letters, if that's okay with you.
Of course, anytime.
Thank you very much to the wonderful Siobhan.
God bless. Bye.
I want to thank both our guests today. That's Sheila and Siobhan's contribution. Both are passionate ambassadors for women in naturism, both members of British Naturism and members of Christian Naturist Fellowship. If you've got any questions or would like to know more about the Christian Naturist Fellowship, then details will be on the show notes. We at Women in Focus like to hear from you often, so please do write in. Again, the email address will be on our show notes. And as ever, please remember to like, follow, thumbs up, all that jazz on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts through. We really do appreciate your engagement. Look forward to it, and we look forward to seeing you again next month as we bring more Women in Focus.